Very good morning to all of you, and a very, very warm welcome to the India Licensing, first of its kind that is happening about time. We are really one of the biggest consumer markets in the world today. I mean, there are lots of, I think we are emerging to be one of the largest. And I think the fact that Franchise India and License conceived the need for doing this show over here, the licensing exhibition as well as the conference, came from the confidence really came from the fact that there is a large consumer market to be, and because this market needs to be addressed, there is a need for the fraternity to gear up, form relationships, come together, build bigger properties, and understand how to meet the needs of the consumer. So, as I welcome you all here, still early days of licensing in India, and I hope to see in the coming years. What I'm going to take you through for the next 4 or 5 minutes, and particularly this could be very interesting for our guests who've come all the way from US, London, many other countries, is to understand the real India opportunity. I'm sure you've read a lot of numbers, particularly, the one that says, which is a star highlight of India, the 1.3 billion. But the fact is we really all don't need 1.3 billion people buying from us. We really need to understand who are the people who to buy. And sometimes that needs to be, sorry, I'll just wait. Sometimes we need to look within the subspace of 3 billion people that we really want to address. So just a few points that I thought together. So at Franchise India, I'm the editor of the group, and I wear the hat of running a retailer magazine, which is a retail industry magazine. We also write about brand licensing, have been writing about it almost 7 years now. We run the Franchising World magazine, which is on franchise businesses. More recently brought Entrepreneur magazine from the US, and we run the India edition of it. Publications have really done is put me into different sects of industries, which has helped me to understand why licensing could be that great an opportunity in the coming years. There's a whole startup world that is growing in India, and then there's a retail industry which is probably changing itself and rechanging itself under the pressure of the digital commerce that we are seeing. And franchising industry is really growing on the back of services that are beginning to consume much more than it was consuming earlier. So just to put in perspective, so this was something that I read interestingly when I was thinking about what I'm going to tell you today, is that India is today one of the top 3 markets for the future of brand licensing. Incidentally, it came out of a global licensing report, which marked China, India, and South America. Now, I was wondering how they think of that is, I realized that this is probably because of our consumer strength, that we are being regarded as one of the top 3 markets, because we don't necessarily still have the largest licensing or the largest licensing programs penetrated enough in India, but we certainly have the strength to take it once it really happens. What India lacks, and I think what will we really need to do in order to make India strong as a license. One area which I feel, and I've been wondering, and I keep on talking to the retail fraternity, the real estate developers, the mall developers that we meet so often, is that why don't we have enough entertainment zones in our country? We have such a consumer base. I mean, just to give you a sense of the number of kids that we have in India, so I just thought I'll take a few figures out and share with you. So, so the number of children who are under the age of is about 10.37% of our population, which is really quite, talking about 124 million wanting in this country to be entertained. That's a lot of entertainment to be done. And if you see, we don't have a global entertainment park, we don't have a Disney, a Lego, or even a Hello Kitty park or anything like that, which could probably be called a hub for children to go to. For all, I think in order to be able to build the right sort of atmosphere for entertainment properties to grow in India, we need entertainment zones. I can tell you a good birthday party, kid who's becoming 1-year-old to 5-year-old of industries, which has helped me to understand why licensing could be that great an opportunity in the coming years. There's a whole startup world that is growing in India, and then there's a retail industry which is probably changing itself and rechanging itself under the pressure of the digital commerce that we are seeing. And franchising industry is really growing on the back of services that are beginning to consume much more than it was consuming earlier. So just to put in perspective, so this was something that I read interestingly when I was thinking about what I'm going to tell you today, is that India is today one of the top 3 markets for the future of brand licensing. Incidentally, it came out of a global licensing report, which marked China, India, and South America. Now, while I was wondering how they think of that is, I realized that this is probably because of our consumer strength that we are being regarded as one of the top 3 markets, because we don't necessarily still have the largest licensing or the largest licensing programs penetrated enough in India, but we certainly have the strength to take it once it really happens. What India lacks, and I think what will we really need to do in order to make India strong as a license? One area which I feel, and I've been wondering, and I keep on talking to the retail fraternity, the real estate developers, the mall developers that we meet so often, is that why don't we have enough entertainment zones in our country? We have such a consumer base. I mean, just to give you a sense of the number of kids that we have in India. So I just thought I'll take a few figures out and share with you. So, so the number of children who are under the age of is about 10.37% of our population, which is really quite, talking about 124 million thing in this country to be entertained. That's a lot of entertainment to be done. And if you see, we don't have a global entertainment park, we don't have a Disney, a Lego, even a Hello Kitty park or anything like that, which could probably be called a hub for children to go to. For all, I think in order to be able to build the right sort of atmosphere for entertainment properties to grow in India, we need entertainment zones. You know, I can tell you a good birthday party, kid who's becoming 1-year-old to 5-year-old, cost as high as $250,000. That's the kind of money a parent can spend doing a birthday party for a kid. Are you part of that? The answer is no. Licensing industry and its merchandise has virtually no role to play in that or that particular occasion of the kid. We need to penetrate over there. And I strongly feel that would start with more stronger entertainment zones, whether they're being created, you know, outside somewhere as larger parks. We really need them. So as I have already told you about personal occasions, I don't know whether you know about Indian weddings at all. So Indian weddings are anywhere, it can stretch from $1 million to $5 million depending upon who's doing the wedding. But there could be a great resonance for licensing industry to be part of this. But I don't see a lot of spread of licensing industry on any of these occasions. We need to get into there. The biggest space I feel where licensing industry and the merchandise that licensing industry can bring out is the bridge to luxury segment. It's virtually empty. It's virtually empty today. You know, and I'm going to come to some sectors where this could be very interesting as I go forward. So as I said earlier, that you don't really need a 1.3 billion customer to service. What you really need to attempt is to understand a sect of customer that you want to service for your business. And that's the way to look at India. That's why we call ourselves a country within a country. You know, you need to think of yourself from a small Singapore's perspective, which part of that small country you want to address within India. That's the way to look at India and Indian customer. In mass brand space, I feel what we really lack is the quirkiness. You don't want me to speak today or what? Thank you. So I think anything which is mass today, any mass brand, whether it is in fashion, whether it is in FMCG, needs to have some inbuilt quirkiness, some fun element in it. Because there are enough mass brands out there in India. But the fact is that the one that will be special would be the one which will have some sort of quirkiness within it. And I think licensing industry has really enough of that quirkiness within the brands that they develop. So mass brand space could be huge. Indians, we love American and European brands. And I can tell you, I work with the restaurant industry in India very closely. So the first 10 brands in the restaurant industry which have a major spread are international brands. Then we have 4 Indian brands which are still very small compared to Donald's, Starbucks, Pizza Hut. They're really the largest here in India. Now interestingly, it is not because even fashion brands, you go to any sector, you look at automobile, just stationery, pick up anything and you'll find 3 or 4 brands, believe me. Now you need to understand that Indians really love global brands, international brands. Particularly I think we have a huge resonance with American brands. Attach a lot of premium value to these brands in India, and I think that is a huge area to be addressed. The premium Indian customer is changing slowly. You know, he today he's gone to a stage where his affordability to buy brands is already there. What he's looking to attach himself to a brand which stands for something. More recently, I've been seeing in the retail fraternity, which is a Japanese brand, Indian customers love to buy it from abroad. Now, of course, Muji is in India already. It stands for minimalization. A brand needs to stand for something if it has to. An Indian premium customer is a global customer. He's a cosmopolitan customer. He wants everyone's. And today, he's a little more picky about what he wants. So, a brand like Tom's, I see, is started becoming very it's becoming more popular in India. Why? Because, you know, they stand for something. They stand for giving away. So, just to address the higher customer in India, the brand needs to really, really stand for something. And building a buzz today is far less difficult than what it used to be a few years back. So I feel that digital particularly is a boon for licensing in India because it helps the word to really grow across fast. So you will find the brand for you through social media. You would be able to do it on your own. So licensing is something that the licensing industry can really make the most of. So this is some area, the potential of the future of India becoming a big licensor and India producing big licensing properties is on those lines. A brand that emanated out of celebrities, stars, actors, actresses in India. Which brand? Being Human. I think Being Human is one of the best properties that we have today, which has actually emanated out of Bollywood based on his emotional, it stood for something, it stood for need for understanding charity, it understood his need for giving back. And that's how this brand came in. But how many of them do we have? You couldn't count, ma'am. After 2 brands, you could not think of a third one. So, you know, the point is, right now, Bollywood is only content. It needs to become, there needs to be at least 100 licensing properties that needs to grow out of it. It's a huge area waiting to happen, a huge area waiting to tap. And you know, we're so emotionally connected to Bollywood. We're so emotionally connected to our stars. And not just Bollywood. I mean, go down south, you'll find there's a whole South Indian market of West Bengal. You'll find a whole lot of stars which are different and they're very connected to them. But do we have licensing programs? Do we have brands coming out of there? The answer is no. So I see a huge potential for future licensing IPs being developed out of Bollywood in the coming years. Vintage brands. I think they have such a huge, I mean, how many of you remember the Ambassador car out? There used to be a, right, see, anybody else who remembers it looked fairly nice, I thought. So, there are these huge vintage brands we are sitting on in India. We've not done anything with them, let alone do something. We've done nothing other than probably we don't. So, there are these huge vintage brands which are sitting in various regions, and at least people out there of that region are very well connected to those brands. We need to work on them, see how we can, you know, nostalgic brands have found their way back across the world in terms of IPs. In India, we have just, so I feel that vintage brands could probably be a great sort of area to look at for developing new IPs. Sports, taking up to sports. You know, we have now got about 80 leagues in India, 80 teams, I would say 100 teams that are there today. Hardly any merchandising program has happened outside the IPL. So, sports is just beginning to see its first fad in India. You know, its first phase in India has just kind of started emerging in a very, very slow sense and looked at as a huge category for developing IP, sports and sports stars. We are so connected with our stars. I mean, you know, even in sleeping, you can tell, probably cricket fans can just tell what was the last score made by Virat Kohli in a certain match. So if we are so in our everyday lives, the answer is we just consuming content. We just not consuming the stuff. We don't have any collect with him from a merchandise perspective. Religion. You know, interestingly, I came across a nice figure yesterday which said that we have more temples, places of worship in schools in India. Beat that. We actually, Indians wear, you know, their leave totally. We're very proud of what our religious values are. But does it have any sort of merchandise experience attached to it? The answer is no. Religion in India, and I think maybe some companies understood its content value, but have we seen any merchandise, any licensing value out of it? The answer is no. The only merchandise that companies understood from Indian religion were companies like Ladro or Swarovski. Produced merchandise around our religious values. It's a huge, huge territory waiting to be opened. Indians love they spend loads of money just on their religious values. But religion as a licensing IP has developed. Luxury, bridge to luxury, even less these spaces are open. Either we understand very cheap drink, understand very high-end jewelry when it comes to consuming our religion as a product. But outside of that, it's a completely vacant space that one needs to look at. So these are the 5 hottest sectors which I thought that brand licensing could be making inroads into. Fashion, of course, needless to say, would be the first category that would be opened by any licensing property. You know, whether they're clothes or whether they're accessories, bags. I said earlier also that quirkiness would be the key here, because you know, you need to be more very modern, very design savvy in order to really break the fashion space, because fashion anyway is a very competitive sector. Now in the next 2 sectors, which is food, beauty and wellness and home, what has happened in the last few years, and this is something I'm able to sort of say with authority here today, is that other magazines that I also run, is that there's a new counterculture that has come to develop in it. And when I say a counterculture, I mean, so okay, let me put it that if I used to order a pizza for lunch, today I'm ordering a salad for lunch. So it's a complete consumer change that is coming. So there are new restaurant brands that are coming. There are new food brands that are coming. The FMCG food that we consume is changing very fast. I mean, one of the best brands that I came across in the recent times was actually a Greek yogurt brand, a cold pressed juice brand, a snack brand which said it stood for healthy snacking. These are the brands that are developing, but they're startups. You know, they're very early in their sort of day, good startups. Now the thing is, in a startup culture, building a brand can take very long. Now this huge opportunity within a food and FMCG space today can be only met well if there is a brand attached to products like these. People like those products, but people have no clue. They understand a cold pressed juice, but they have no clue which cold pressed juice to go for, because there's no brand out there who's addressing that, or a Greek yogurt brand or any other thing like that, which today stands for healthy, organic. So I think this is a counterculture. We want to consume foods like that, but we don't really have enough brands. And I think licensing could very well sort of close the gap with working with startups in new product lines to develop better lines. Same goes for beauty and wellness. You know, look at organic skincare products. You look at Ayurveda. Now, interestingly, some of you may not know this, but there are about 10,000 Ayurvedic manufacturers in India who are producing different Ayurvedic lines. But how many, I mean, and I'm sure this room are consuming Ayurveda products or herbal products. I can tell you, if there are 10,000 you've only consumed about 10 brands ever in your life, and that too, you know, if you really follow Ayurveda in your life for Ayurveda. The point is, where is the rest of the product going? It's very regional, very centric to certain place or certain community that they're selling to. It's never come in the limelight. So look at Patanjali. I have not seen a better licensing program in India. So it was about a religion that went on to say that, you know, good living was important, and eventually it went down to a whole line of Patanjali and Ayurveda products. That's a beautiful licensing property according to me. So I think that do we have an Indian Ayurvedic kids line of skincare, of soaps or whatever it is, or personal? The answer is no. Licensing could help, absolutely. There's a whole block, so it's a counterculture. We in Indians suddenly have started moving everything of their FMCG to an Ayurvedic line, but there are really not enough brands which are addressing it. Education, amazingly good sector, big it is worldwide, and I mean, I would love if Jiggy and some of our international guests could actually throw some light on it. But I think education is a huge sector waiting to be covered in India. 37% of the population is under 10 years, it's about under of age in this country. 37% of the population, they want to be taught at the end of the day. Are there childcare centers in India? No. Preschools in India, if I was to see education, and that too, there is between one preschool or another preschool, barring I would say about 7 or 8 brands which are chains and have done a good franchising program. But outside of that, we don't really have great preschool education in India. I was reading about Nick Jr.'s preschool program that runs outside India. But my point is, why should a brand like Peppa Pig not start their play schools in India? It's a huge, huge opportunity that is waiting to be opened. You know, every corporate office needs a child care center. We don't even have a single chain. Not even a single which could just say that I can plug and play a child care center in your corporate office. Nobody is unlocking it. So I think education really, and I think sports education, early education, entertainment, and again I would say that there is opportunity here to tie up with startups who have some great product lines, but unfortunately fall short when it comes to a brand. I think this is one of the hottest sectors, despite the fact that the real estate market is not the best in India currently and what it could be. But nevertheless, the fact that we have smaller homes than what we were used to living in as a country gives a big opportunity for newer products to come into play. We need everything, furniture which is more compact, which we need, you know, displays which are far more contemporary, more again, there are those who've developed IoT products, they've developed digital products for homes, better, but the answer, they would never come into the limelight because they still don't have a brand value attached to them. So I think home space is one big space that is, so this is broadly what I wanted to share with you in terms of looking or understanding India from the point of view of what or how Indians really live. If we try to bring a licensing property and try to 100% put that licensing property from US or UK into India as it is, it might not give the best of results. But the minute we decide to understand Indian culture and how Indians operate, I mean the Indian, unlike in the West, the entire Indian education, child of education in India paid for by his parent. He doesn't take loan to study here, whatever college he goes to. So you're waiting this market, provided you give him the right kind of educational programs that they need to take. India is, for some of our foreign friends out here, the good educational programs in India are all education programs. The government programs don't really play a very big role in it. So we spend a lot of money in educating our child, perhaps more than a parent or in UK is spending to educate their children. But still I would feel that we are underreached when it comes to offering them great education. So having said that, as I said, and a little more in market before we develop an IP or even an Indian IP that needs to go all over the place. I'll probably end by saying this, that it works both ways. We have a great Indian diaspora population which is sitting outside India. I was recently at the IFA, for some of you who may not know, it's one of the biggest properties of Bollywood awards that exist outside India, not within India. And I could tell you that, so the last month was in New York, and there were about 60,000 winning IFA awards. And I thought in New York City, they could find a stadium to get a fill an Indians to attend Indian awards. But have we really, but are they able to buy even a single piece of merchandise of Bollywood before they leave that stadium? Once they go out of these awards, the answer is no. So there is a huge, huge opportunity for Indian IPs that develop to go out of India and reach out first to the Indian diaspora and maybe later on to lots of other people So I think it's a great start, and I welcome all of you to the licensing industry. For some of you who are new, I think it's a great opportunity for you waiting to be unlocked. And going forward, I look forward to meeting you and hearing from you about your thoughts on licensing. Welcome once again. Thank you very much.